Hello, you're here with T.
And Matthew, digitally.
And we are the Bing Zang Zoom podcast.
Quarantine edition.
So what have you been doing during this quarantine? What kind of shows have you been watching?
Well, before we get into that, I do want to just point out that there might be some sound issues in this episode, basically because we're both quarantined. We've got me piped in over a phone and Jerry rigged up, so if there is any sound issues, we do apologize. We're doing the best that we can, given the circumstances. We do want to stay at home and stay isolated as much as possible, bring the curve down, and we hope you guys are too. That being said, what am I watching right now? I've still been trying to work out as much as I can and still been trying to do a lot of my normal stuff, just more isolated. So I haven't actually been watching too much more than normal, but yeah. I've been spending most of my time spent with TV trying to catch up on the Marvel Netflix shows, because somewhere along the line I just got super far behind on all of those. So I watched season 2 of Iron Fist. Technically not Netflix, but I'm watching season 2 of Cloak and Dagger right now, which has been amazing. And then I'm actually still watching Smallville. I've been lately retrying to watch all of Smallville. So
yeah, that's wild. Speaking of going back like that, I have a collection basically of Star Wars movies, and I was going to start from episode 1 and then go on down the line, right? Make a day of it, do a marathon. Might take 2 days. But I found that I didn't know where my episode 1 is. So I scoured through the DVDs and I didn't come up with anything. So I guess I'm going to have to skip that one and come back to it, which is something I didn't really want to do. Or I'll find it on one of the sites or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays Amazon, you can actually rent movies off of Netflix, or not Netflix, excuse me, off of YouTube and stuff, for $2 or whatever.
Yeah, I'll be down with that. So I guess I'll have to do that. But speaking of exercising, that's basically what got me sidetracked. As soon as I couldn't find it, I just went to work out, got the kids involved. Had them out here sweating in the living room. My daughter couldn't even stand up straight on her own. I asked Troy, I said, my son, I said, so what's sore on you? He was like, everything. Yeah, it's good times. We're making the most of it. Definitely getting a lot of trampoline work, So I get to go out in the backyard and jump around with the kids, and now I have an excuse to do that. So that's always a plus for me.
Yeah, it's a good time to reconnect with your family. Unfortunately, work and things like that get in the way too often, and this is an excuse to sit at home and watch a bad movie like episode 1.
Dang, that's how you feel?
Well, I don't have disdain for episode 1 the way a lot of people do. To be honest, I'm not a huge Star Wars guy, which I know is blasphemy.
I mean, me either.
I like Star Wars.
Yeah.
I don't love Star Wars. But episode 1 is certainly one of the weaker films, just because it's all about the inner workings of the world as opposed to the characters and stuff like that.
Well, I saw that
it got some good scenes.
I saw that it got a 53 from Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, see, that's kind of middle of the road, right? Yeah. That's not too bad.
And they can be pretty harsh at times too. So I don't know where to go with that. So 53. I'm like, okay, well maybe it's a 60.
Right. Is that the audience score or the critic score?
Ooh, good question. Not quite sure.
It's probably the critic score then.
Yeah.
I've started not trusting Rotten Tomatoes all that much anymore, and I kind of go off the audience score now as opposed to the critic score.
Was it one movie that made you stop trusting it, or is it just the overall collection of their scores that you were that's not right?
It's been a little at a time, being like a movie that was just not very good in this. But I think the one that was the real kicker was Venom. the Sony superhero movie. Venom, it's a good movie. I really enjoyed Venom. It's not as good as a lot of the MCU films, but it's definitely in that same vein as the MCU. It's just like a slightly lower quality. But it has, and I don't remember the exact score, so I'm just going to make up numbers here, so nobody look it up and correct me. But it was something like it had 20% critic score and 80% audience score.
Wow.
And I'm like, how can there be that much of a difference here?
Wow.
Right? Like, to that point where it'd be like, what was that, like 70% difference, 60% difference?
Like, who's doing the critiquing? Sidney Poitier? Like, is it somebody that's been acting from a different time frame, and they're like, oh no, this acting is completely, like, you know, sometimes you watch an older film and just, you know, you give up a few things because you know that the audio is going to be a little bit different. Just because of technology at the time and stuff like that. But the acting itself is also kind of different. You know, when the villain's always like, so you want, so that's what you want to do, Like,
it's very much more theater.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it depends on where you're coming from. I like the acting that you have in Venom. Like, I think Venom was a pretty good movie. So for it to be that much of a disparity, I don't think that's correct.
Yeah, and there was just a few movies around that same time. Venom's the one that just sticks out in my head the most, but where it was just this massive difference between the critic score and the audience score, and I'm like, there shouldn't be that much of a difference. Like, you know, like maybe 20-point difference, sure, but when it gets into like 60s and 70s, that's just...
Yeah, that's just a little bizarre. Outrageous. Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully everybody is staying safe during this time, regardless of the Rotten Tomatoes score. You know, as long as everybody is staying inside, man, so we can get this thing done and over with, and we can get, you know, back in the same room doing the podcast and stuff like that. You know, keep home.
I actually have, this wasn't a topic on the paper, but I'd actually like to bring up something before we move on to the next subject. The concept, like we talked about a second ago, you could rent movies now off of YouTube or the Google Play Store or iTunes and stuff like that.
Right.
Are we getting back to a return of the video store? Remember, we used to go to the video store every Fridays and whatnot, and get you know, 2 or 3 movies and watch them over the weekend. Then, you know, we started doing streaming, and we watched all of our movies on streaming. With this quarantine, so many of the movies that were in theaters that, you know, aren't going to make their money because the theater's all shut down are going straight so we can rent them on these platforms. Is that going to show a return to, like, the video store style thing, but digitally, where, oh, well, I can just go and rent this movie, pay $5, $20, whatever the case is, to rent this movie as opposed to streaming things all the time for free, right? Like the Netflixes and the Hulus and the whatnot.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting to think of. I was just surprised that, you know, they were able to do that so fast, but I see now that they had everything ready. Like with Bloodshot, for example, I was like, oh man, right as soon as Bloodshot hit theaters, bam, you know, the coronavirus restrictions were put in place. So
The Invisible Man, that's another one.
Right, yeah. But I don't know. I guess the home movies, this might revamp a few things right now. I think right now some of the places that are the least hurt are like delivery places, because, you know, Amazon's got to be doing pretty well because everybody and their mom is getting stuff from Amazon right now. You know,
right.
Really anybody who is essential, you know, hats off to you. Having to be outside, having to work, having to keep lights on, and you know, we appreciate you very much. You know, I appreciate. And,
you know, I mean, we all talk about the nurses and the doctors, and you know, by all means, yes, please. You know, those people are amazing and deserve all the praise. But also, the janitors, the people you know who work at WalMarts, that, you know, everybody who's contributing something to this.
Right.
The trash people. Imagine what we do if we didn't have garbage men anymore now.
Listen, I just got a new couch, right? My couch was sitting outside. I'm like, so what is this going to affect? Because is this going to affect trash pickup? That was one of the things that was on my mind. And when I saw them come by and pick it up, I was very grateful because, I don't want to be, even though nobody's outside, I don't want to look like nobody lives here.
Yeah.
With all the trash outside and stuff like that. So yes, even the people that don't get the normal credit for doing what they do, thank you so much. From Bing Zang Zoom to you. All right. So speaking of shows and stuff, right? I hear you have something for us in terms of The Juice with Kevin Smith.
Yes, Kevin Smith. For a second there, I was like, which one is this again? I don't have my list in front of me right now, and it's throwing me off. Yes, Kevin Smith. So this has been a rumor for a little while that with the Spider-Man franchise, because we've seen so much weird stuff happen with that lately. The Sony and Disney working together, then they weren't, then they were, then this is changing, that's changing. And it's all been so back and forth. This has been a rumor for a while, but recently Kevin Smith came out, and as much as he can not working for Marvel, has confirmed it, that Daredevil will be appearing in the new Spider-Man movie, or at very least Matt Murdock as the character will be appearing in Spider-Man 3. Which is definitely an interesting thing. Obviously those characters work very well together. If Spider-Man is on the run, he's going to need a lawyer. What better one to have? But what really gets interesting to me about this is, are they going to recast him now that the Netflix deal is over? Or are they going to keep, I think his name was Matt Cox, I believe. Charlie Cox.
Oh, I was going to say, if his name is Matt already, you might as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, he did a pretty good job, man. I liked how he was able to capture the the vulnerable parts of the character. He did a real good job, man. It wasn't just like a action fly by night action type of deal. It was in depth. It got you. It did what it was supposed to do. It got you involved in the characters. And Daredevil sprung off a few other characters.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can have the same guy play Daredevil.
Yeah, with
some consistency
the Netflix
would be nice.
Stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying some consistency would be nice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, with the Marvel Netflix stuff, it's kind of a weird scenario because, for one thing, they're not allowed to use the characters at all until the contract with Netflix ends, which should be next year, from my understanding. I might be wrong on that, but I think it's 2021. But Kevin Feige is a big part to play in this too. The head of Marvel Studios and the current CCO of Marvel. When his previous position was to be in charge of the movie divisions, and Jeff Loeb, formerly DC person, he was the showrunner for Smallville. He was in charge of the TV part. And so they were supposed to be connected, right? The Marvel Netflix stuff, refers to the movies. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have characters come over all the time,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. It was all still supposed to be the MCU, even if that wasn't the case. Then when Kevin Feige became the chief creative officer, he's like, no, unless I was involved in it, it's not canon. So that means none of the TV shows that we've been watching are canon now, I guess. But then now with this whole thing with Sony again, it's like, well, now the Morbius and Venom movies are seemingly canon to the MCU, even if they're not going to reference each other a whole lot. But because of their shared use of Spider-Man and those characters, that's going to be canon. So it's like, is the Netflix stuff canon to the MCU, or is it not? So if Charlie Cox comes back, that's going to be the definitive deciding factor there.
Man, the reason that I would like for there to be consistency is because if you think about it like this, think about how many different people have played Superman. Think about how many different people have played Batman, right? Yeah. Legal stuff aside, from the fans' standpoint, when you have someone that, if they want to play the role, it's not like a Michael Keaton Batman scenario where, he didn't want to play Batman anymore.
Sure.
It's, if the actor wants to play the character, then, this contractual stuff, to get the most out of it, I think that taking something from the TV shows, the Netflix shows, and then putting it on the big screen with the same character would not only do wonders for the actor themselves, but also for the continuity. Like, if Netflix is able to do this, which I do believe that they're putting movies, into the theaters. So if they're able to do this, then it only helps them. But they might have to go through some legal issues in order to get that that done. But I would love to see that happen. I would love to see that more. That would make people invest more into the TV shows and into the shows on Netflix and the streaming shows. It would. I think that's the new revamped version of the must-see TV.
Right, yeah. And there's a difference between quality, too, of your weekly television show.
Right.
And then your Hulus and your Netflixes and your HBO shows, right? There's kind of like, they're kind of that middle area between a TV show and a movie. They're higher quality than a TV show, but less so than a movie, right?
Right.
And yeah, I personally get so annoyed with people when they're like, oh, Dragon Ball, unless Akira Toriyama wrote it, it's not canon, or Kevin Feige, unless I was involved with it, it's not canon. That's like saying, like, oh, unless Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster wrote a Superman book, it's not Superman.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't see the point of drawing these lines there.
Yeah, get out of the way of something special. Why stand in the way of that?
Marvel would want to advertise the shows more. I mean, even if Kevin Feige wasn't directly involved, if people go back and are watching those shows now because they're like, oh, he's in Spider-Man, maybe I should go back and rewatch Daredevil.
Right.
Or, they're still getting money from it, so why does it matter?
People's ego, man. That seems like an ego thing.
It does. Yeah, it very much does.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was the scoop onto that. Now, moving on to, from one thing that we would want to correct, potentially a person's ego, to some other things that we would like to correct. Now, a lot of times, people say certain phrases that aren't being said correctly, right? And so we're going to talk about corrective speaking. So, for example, one of the things that people like to say a lot is, you want to eat your cake and have it too, right? So, or that one of the things that you need to do is say, you want to have your cake and eat it too, right? Or I think I got that backwards. That you want to eat your cake and have it too is the correct way to say it, but people say you want to have your cake and eat it too. So it's like, yeah, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can do that. You can't eat your cake and then have it too.
Right.
So,
it's a lot of these little idioms that have become a little less understood over time because people just use them. Like, I could care less. It's like, okay, well, if you could care less, it means that you care about it. So what you mean to say is I couldn't care less, right? It means you don't care about it. I couldn't care less. But, it's just one of these things that we just kind of rattle off. Now, that really opens up the doors for a lot of things like words. A lot of the meanings of words have changed over time.
True.
And they don't mean the same things. Or even people who misunderstand the meaning of words or phrases. Right, that's a very common thing too. The English language is just a mess.
Very true. I mean, look, you got one, nip it in the butt. Yeah. People say nip it in the butt. It's nip it in the bud.
Right. Like a cigarette butt.
One and the same instead of one and the same.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I I guess we like to skip through certain things in the way that we speak, so we don't necessarily pronounce everything the way it is supposed to be pronounced, and then that gets passed on, and so people switch up the saying, because who knows? I think it's just going to be accepted, or that it already is accepted, to be able to say, things like one in the same instead of one and the same. Like, I know what a person means when they say it, even though they're not saying it correctly. So does this fall under like an Ebonics profile, or is this something that needs to be fixed? Because I feel like people should at least understand what you're trying to say, myself included, to try to understand what it is that you're trying to say with the phrase, maybe the history behind it, where it comes from. But at the same time, certain things like with Ebonics, you might know better, you might know how to say something, but that doesn't mean you can't say it with style.
Right.
Now, some of these things are clearly not saying it with any style. they're just wrong. But
right, and it depends on the setting too.
Yeah.
Right, like if you're giving a speech or you're at work in a professional suit and tie place, it's going to be a little bit more, or a little bit less appropriate to use Ebonics than it would be drinking a beer with your friend.
Right, right, exactly. It makes sense, true.
Yeah. But there's also, like we said, there's phrases and stuff like that the meanings have changed over time. Like the word literally. That's a huge one that a lot of people are talking about right now. And I think there was an Adam Runs Everything episode where they talk about the word literally. But, like they're saying, oh, all these kids nowadays that use literally when they mean figuratively. Well, if you actually look up in a lot of dictionaries, predating this whole 2000s craze of using the word literally, the first definition of the word literally means exact and precise, true, to be true, etc., etc. I literally jumped for joy. And then the second definition was literally to mean figuratively. I literally jumped 20 feet in the air. Right? So the word literally actually has two definitions, one of them meaning figuratively.
Oh, snap. Well, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, literature isn't always true.
Right.
Literature can be fiction.
Exactly. Literature, literally. Right? Those are the connections. And you even look at a lot of Shakespeare plays. There's a line, I forget exactly, but it was something like, the heat she gave was literally from the sun, or something.
Right.
It's like he's saying she's hot. He's not saying that she's literally the sun.
The sun came down and gave me a kiss.
Yeah.
It burnt my lips, and she burnt other things.
Cancer, if that was the case.
Right, yeah. that probably wouldn't work out too well there, champ. Yeah. So how is the during this quarantine time? How has like the shaving been going? You keeping your hair, you letting your hair grow.
I hardly ever cut my head hair, as anybody who watches the podcast video version will know.
I've gone bald. I cut it completely off. I mean, I let it grow. It's a little stubble now, but I cut it completely bald. I said if I can't get to the barber, then I'm just gonna go ahead and just get rid of everything.
Yeah, that way when it's time to go back out, it'll be at the actual.
That's right.
When you normally wear it.
Hopefully, unless that time is freaking December. Gonna cancel Christmas with this stuff?
Yeah, let's fingers crossed that's not the case.
Yeah, I hope not.
There's little things that have kind of started to slip, of course, when you're not around the public. I usually shave my chest and maybe other areas, and that, not happen as much lately. But
so you got some taco meat.
That's one way of putting it. But yeah, I usually have, I have very long hair, and a lot of times I have a beard. Sometimes I don't. Depends on what project I'm working on right now. If I'm playing somebody a little bit more professional or younger, play a lot of teenage roles, so I can't have a beard then. If I'm doing something a little bit more hippie or surferish, then they might want a beard or some scruff. Just kind of depends,
So do you have to be? So they're gonna change your name to Matthew Jeremy, like Ron Jeremy.
Oh yeah, no.
With the chest hair, just the chest hair. That's
just the chest
no
hair.
Videos, no videos, ladies. Don't get excited. Speaking of which, right?
Onlyfans.com.
Right, Speaking of which, like, when it comes to manscaping, right? Yes. Like I don't really have to shave my body that often. My hair just doesn't grow that fast on my body. But when it comes to like manscaping,
yes,
would you say that that's non-quarantine manscaping? Would you say that is a must for anybody who grows hair on their body?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you want from life. You know what I mean? I think definitely having less hair is more attractive because it's less animalistic. It's cleaner looking, et cetera, et cetera. It makes me feel cleaner, to be honest, to have less body hair and stuff like that.
Smooth.
But I mean, and to get really, really kind of inappropriate with this one, I don't think anybody has the right to ask for anything oral to be done in that region if you have hair down there. Man, woman, either way, if you have any kind of stuff that can get in a person's mouth, then so if you are a very active person in that kind of thing, then you probably should be a little bit cleaner down there. So again, it depends on what you want for life. If you want to be more attractive, then maybe shave some places. If that's not a huge priority to you, you want to be more comfortable, you want to be able to get ready for work faster, then don't. I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer. I think there's just different circumstances.
Well, putting you on the spot here in terms of what your opinion is. What do you prefer when it comes to the ladies? Do you prefer, a straight bald scape, or do you mind if there's a little scruff going on down there? Y'all listen up, ladies.
That is kind of putting me on the spot here.
This one's not for kids.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if anybody wants anything oral done to themselves, then it needs to be shaven either way. But I mean,
what about a little peach fuzz?
Again,
all right, we'll let him off the hook. We'll let him off the hook. All right.
Here's the reason why I say this, and I don't know, I say this on the podcast or not, but I don't. I've never done that.
Oh, okay, all right, fair enough.
I'm a virgin, so it's my choice, but it's and it's not like I'm a wait till you get married type of person or anything, but it's just hasn't been the right scenario for me. So
I fully understand. I mean, don't get me twisted. I held out for as long as I could hold out where I was at.
Fair enough.
I mean, New York is an interesting place, but at the same time, that's not something that I think that, first of all, shout out to you for being brave on that standpoint. And then second, I mean, you got to be careful around people nowadays, especially even in New York where I was at. People carrying some stuff on them that they can't get off. So if you're going to make it...
That's so true. And the reason why, like I said, I haven't is just, I haven't been in a relationship for a long time, et cetera, et cetera. But, I'm just a little bit more conservative at that type of thing because, like you said, there are things that you can't get off of you. Mm-hmm. If you have a child and you're not ready or planning for one, that can affect your life. It's
absolutely.
To me, it has to be a scenario where I feel comfortable, and it just hasn't been a scenario where I feel comfortable yet. So,
copy that. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Like I said, respect to you for that, because I think a few people, including some people close to me, need to hear that. All right. So, speaking of cleaning and stuff like that. Well, would you ever go bald really quick before we move on? Would you ever go bald, like for a role or for your significant other? Would you go bald?
I think only time will answer that one. No, but would I ever shave my head?
Right? Yeah. Would you?
So would I do it for fashion? Not really. I've always kind of wore my hair long. I had it, short for a little while in my life, but for the most part, I've always had long hair.
Do you feel like you have the head for a bald head?
What's that?
Do you feel like you have the head for a bald head?
I don't know. I did for a movie once, which the movie totally flopped. It did not do very well at all. But I played a soldier during World War II, and they gave me a crew cut. Right. So I mean, it was, like Eminem style haircut. Right. So it was very, very, very short. And so I rocked that for a little while, just until the movie, completed filming. So I mean, that was as close as I've ever gotten. If the part was right, if it was a good part, if I got hired to play Lex Luthor or something that I knew was going to be a good gig for a long time, yeah, I'd probably go bald. But would I ever do it by choice? No.
Right. All right. I mean, like I said, I did, and I wasn't quite sure. I didn't remember. Like, I had done it before. I cut my hair bald before, back in like 2007, right? But it had been so long, I didn't really have pictures. I didn't have nothing from the camera that I had at that time. Matter of fact, I don't think I even had a phone yet. 07? Yeah, I think I just got my first phone, like late in that year, but picture taking was not an option. Even if I did take a picture, it would look like a Nintendo game compared to phones nowadays. So that was the last time I cut my hair bald, right? So I had no reference, no pictures for reference as to what it would look like or what my head would look like. Plus, my head shape has probably changed since 2007, just a little bit. So I said, you know what? Let me just go ahead and cut it all off. I cut it all off, and now you can call me Stone Cold T. Austin. Right.
So this is actually a funny story that you'd probably like.
Yeah.
Did you do a TV interview recently for like the news or anything? Not recently. Okay, no. I didn't think so. But so my mom calls me the other day, and she's like, she says, "Hey, I was watching this thing about this trainer talking about how all the gyms are closed on the news. Was that your trainer?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. What was his name?" She's like, "Oh, I don't know. But he was, describing this, and they described the guy, and he was bald." And I'm like, "Well, can't be my trainer because he's got hair." Later that same day was when you texted me the picture. You're like, "By the way, I'm bald now." And that's what I was like,
snap! Just a coincidence. I didn't speak to any reporters. If I did, I was completely drugged because I have no recollection of that.
Fair enough. I've done a few interviews like that myself.
Hey, there you go.
That was a joke. For legal reasons, that's a joke.
Oh, man. Well, speaking of bald and grooming and stuff like that, right? Yes. What's the dirtiest thing in your house? Like, the one dirt... Well, we got the scoop. In my house, I would probably say up until like 2 days ago, because when on quarantine, you find a whole bunch of different things to do, right? Mm-hmm. So mostly cleaning, and I found that one of the dirtiest things in my house was the fan. And I'm talking about I use the fan pretty much every day. I don't think there's a day that I don't use the fan. I'm not talking about the box fan. I'm talking about the overhead ceiling fan, right?
Sure.
And so, when am I ever looking up, right? Except if I'm standing next to you. But like, I look up at the fan and I'm like, goodness gracious, the dust is flying everywhere, and so I had to go and get the duster. My daughter's little play duster, which actually dusts, so shout out to her for hooking me up with the duster.
She provided for the family.
That's right. we must bow to her. I got to give her the big piece of chicken, you dig? So, dusted off the fan, man. Yeah, everything else was pretty all right. Besides me moving the living room around a little bit, just switching stuff up. Because when you're in house all day, it's different when you go to work, come home. You appreciate what you have. You waiting to get home and relax and stuff. But when you're at home all day, 24/7, looking at the same stuff, you just want to switch something around. So we got a new couch. The whole TV stand has been switched up. Now that's been hooked up real nice. So just been switching stuff around, man. Trying to keep quarantine constant, I guess. Doing something.
Yeah, and it's good things that we can do right now that we've been putting off, like cleaning our fans and stuff like that.
Yeah,
we have
not the best for breathing.
Time now. You get that reference?
It sounded like Sean Connery, so it sounded like
close. There was an episode of The Twilight Zone. One of my favorite shows. And one of the best episodes was this guy who was just obsessed with reading. And so he would just read all the time and stuff, and it affected his personal life and his wife and his work, and he got fired and like all this stuff.
Dang, and, bro. For reading?
Yeah, because he's reading too much, like as an obsession. And so he goes into a library, and he's like down in the basement or something. And there's an earthquake, and everybody in the world died. So he comes up, and he's the only person still alive that he knows of, anyway. And somehow all the books survived in the library. And so he's like, oh, no, I could just sit and read all these books, and I don't have to worry about anybody else. And then his glasses fall off and break.
Oh, wait, I think I did see that one.
Yeah, it's referenced a lot
snap.
and stuff. And so the episode ends with him sitting going, there was time now. There was time.
Wow. How did you just have that on retainer? I didn't even, when you pictured it, I mean, when you said it is when I pictured it, and I'm like, yeah, wait, I do know that one.
Yeah, but, that's one of the most famous ones.
Man, we used to watch the Twilight Zone all the time. My favorite one is the one with William Shatner with the guy on the plane.
Yeah. like the monkey creature or something on the window or on the the wing. Yeah.
That show was that show was scary back in the days. That and
they have that new one, but from what I've heard, it's not the best thing to work on right now.
Yeah, wasn't hitting like the old one, but the what was it called? The Crypt Keeper, Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've redone that style a few times. Tales from the Crypt, the Outer Limits, of course, the remix of the Twilight Zone. But even shows like Black Mirror or Castle Rock and stuff like that are just modern interpretations of that.
True. American Horror Story.
Sure, except they're just season long instead of one episode.
Right.
Yeah, anthology horror is all it is. The Alfred Hitchcock Presents style.
Yeah. I'm with that. That's actually the type of horror that I'm for. I'm not that big of a horror buff, but stuff like that, Twilight Zone, American Horror Story. I do like that type of stuff. Sure. But yeah, man,
we were talking about the dirtiest things in our houses. Yeah. Which is my web history. I'm just going to keep the jokes rolling. But legitimately though, I mean, we all talk about like the toilets, and yes, people, please by all means keep your toilets clean.
Yeah.
But they've done research that shows that like the toilet seat's actually like one of the cleanest parts of your house.
Absolutely.
Because your butt shines it all the time, I guess.
Butt shining things now.
Butt shining things, you know what I mean? It does what it is.
It's a
people
weird
with
part of the body
right now are just laughing at everyone else. They're like, you laughed at us squirting waters on our butts. Where's your toilet paper now?
Well, the crazy part is, no matter where I'm at, right? This is just me personally. I wipe the seat. I make sure I put soap on some tissue. I even do it at the house. So my toilet is definitely the cleanest. One of the people you could probably slide your finger across any part of my toilet bowl, and you won't get anything on your hands. Cause,
I want it so clean I could eat off of it.
Basically.
In fact, give me my meal in there in 5 minutes.
I need, you know, I could definitely poop where I eat, but that probably wouldn't be the best, seeing as how there'll be a whole bunch of particles in the air.
Which, you know, brings us back to that saying, is it poop where you eat or is it poop where you sleep? Like, what's the saying? So now we're back to that subject.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, so I mean, as far as dirtiest stuff, well, I will say this, between the fan and actually something on me. So I go out to the backyard, jump around on the trampoline and stuff like that. Sometimes I bring the shoes with me, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I come in the house and the bottom of my feet look like I've been wearing the Black Panther costume, but only the bottoms. So, yeah, I mean, but it is what it is. It's not consistently dirty.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. What about walls? You think the walls are dirty? Like, who's cleaning their walls?
Right. I mean, as far as like visible dirt,
yeah.
You know, flat paint is really bad about having dirt show up as opposed to gloss paint. Right. Now we're getting into, this is like a home renovation show at this point. But you know, like you said, you know, if you sneeze in your hand and then, you know, later on you're leaning against the wall, well, you just got stuff all over the wall. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. You know, I've lived on my own a few times. I've lived with roommates a few times. I've lived at home a few times. I'm a very dirty person when it comes to my spaces, right? Like, my bathroom will be pretty filthy and stuff if I don't have to share it with other people, because I just don't want to take the time to clean all the time.
Right.
Same thing with my room. I'll just throw stuff on the floor because, like, well, I know where it is. I could just step over it.
Yeah.
But the shared spaces, or the spaces that I'd have visitors come over into if I'm living by myself, it's like I want that to be very clean because I want everybody to be comfortable and enjoy themselves and whatever.
I mean, honestly though, some of the best times of my life were in like somebody's dirty room. You know, you could jump around, you could freaking slam each other and not have to worry about breaking somebody's bone because there's clothes on the floor to stop your fall. or they took their bed down and put it on the floor. Like, that's you know, those are, like I said, some of the best times of my life was beds on the floor, you know, everybody sleeping everywhere, my cousins over, we all wrestling and playing around, playing Nintendo, playing Sega, all that type of stuff, man. Those are some of the best times. But, you know, I do understand that if you got somebody coming over and you want the place to look presentable, you know, I guess, like, your bedroom, unless it's that type of visit, the bedroom isn't really an issue. And I mean, if you're short on time, you know, if you got quarantine time like now, it's like, all right, yeah, I guess you do what you clean up just to have something to do. But, you know, if you're short on time, man, I hit the living room, the bathroom, you know, places where people are going to be.
Right,
dining room, table, and I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I had, you know, a lot of, like, I always have the reputation whenever I have a roommates and stuff of being the dirty one. They're like, you mess everything up, you know, whatever, whenever we get into fights or whatever. Yeah. Because they look at my room or my bathroom and know that it's there and not realize that I'm the one cleaning the rest of the house.
Right.
But I remember there was a scenario where I had one official roommate and then I had two people that were basically living there, but they were just crashing there, like, all the time. They didn't actually officially live there. They just, like, slept in the living room and crashed there all the time. And me and that roommate were constantly fighting because he's like, you never do the dishes. I'm like, I do the dishes. You never do the dishes.
Right, yeah.
And stuff like that. Eventually, all three of them moved out, and then that's when I lived by myself.
Yeah.
And my roommate, who was my official roommate, came back to hang out one day, and he comes walking in, and he's like, is the house always this clean? And I'm like,
wow.
Pretty much. And he's like, so it wasn't you the whole time? And I'm like, nope.
Try again, Chief. Well, we are getting short on time, so This has been another edition of the Bing Zang Zoom podcast.
Quarantine edition.
We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Farewell.